You know, I know sometimes we get a little annoyed when we have this break right in the middle of the action. You know, it's like somebody getting hurt in a football game. You know, everything stops. They go to commercial. You know, it's a little annoying. For me, it's really a healthy thing. It just, you know, gives me, it's amazing in 3 minutes. You know, I can bring my blood pressure down and I can take a deep breath. So it's a good thing. So if you start seeing an increase in our breaks, which you're not, I'm just saying, you'll know why. It's just because I need it. But that's not going to happen. I'm just saying. Anyway, the markets finished in positive territory yesterday. German jobless claims unexpectedly went up. That's not good. Also, their consumer confidence, you might remember me telling you Monday, went down. So this is the largest economy in Europe. So all in all, though, I think it's doing well. GDP, there's a GOP, I can't get off GDP. GOP Congressman Scott Rigel, a Republican in Virginia, has asked John Boehner to immediately call Congress back in session. Yeah, I'm sure John Boehner will be all over that. I sent that article, by the way, on that out on my Twitter account, and it's on. I guess it's on Facebook, so you can see the comment I made about it. I won't say it, but you can go to Twitter if you follow me on Twitter. Financial Issues. It's at Financial Issues, or Facebook. Again, it's Financial Issues. Anyway, they went on with this radio program this morning talking about my defunding. That's, by the way, was the reason how they got me on the program, was for my campaign on hammering away at Republicans and Democrats that are supporting Obamacare, either supporting it by not supporting the defunding measure or supporting it because they voted for it and they still believe in it. As you know, this week it was kind of nice because they asked me about it. So I got to mention that, you know, Mary Landrieu, who we're highlighting this week, a Louisiana Democrat. So they cut me short of saying that it's on my website, her phone numbers. But I tried. But for all of you, financialissues.org, in my accountability corner, you'll see Senator Mary Landrieu, Democrat from Louisiana, and we need to call her office and shut her phone systems down and all of her local offices and national offices and remind her how much you believe in defunding Obamacare, and you can't believe her support, and you can't believe the fact that she compared and is ashamed of the United States medical system, and she had the nerve of comparing it to Spain and France. And you take exception to that, and you're going to work hard. Here's the key. You're going to work hard to make sure she doesn't get reelected in November. And if she gets reelected in November, you'll work even harder to make sure the next time she comes up for reelection, you're going to work hard to make sure she doesn't get reelected. But we need to let them know and send a message throughout Washington. So anyway, we're going to continue that. There are still an awful lot of leaders that don't, you know, on the website, don'tfundit.com, it's a petition. 700,000 people have signed it. 700,000 people have signed that petition. So, you know, once that gets to be about 1.5 million and 2 million, it's going to have a dramatic impact, I would think. And there's got to be more congressmen and senators that start supporting the defunding. Anyway, we're going to get to the phones, 866-300-9298, 866-300-9298. Let me go to Vern. Vern calling us in South Dakota.
Good morning, Dan.
Hey, Vern. Good morning.
You have talked about the Fed here recently, and I realize that the Fed is an apolitical function, but do you think the president influences the Fed more than they influence the president?
That's a good question, Vern. I guess in my heart, I want to believe no, that he doesn't. But I will say this. I believe if you have a Fed chairman, like a Janet Yellen, if she were to be Fed chairman, or Larry Summers, Ben Bernanke, I'm not 100% sure on, he hasn't totally tipped his hand there, that whose ideology aligns with the president, whoever the president might be at the time, that you've got to believe certainly that what the president is trying to accomplish would sway the thinking of the Fed. Now, I truly don't want to believe that. So it's hard for me to go there, but it certainly would appear that the Fed chairman, Ben Bernanke, is probably not aligning necessarily his ideology, but is not doing anything, in my opinion, to really spur the economy. And I gotta believe, and it wasn't until the 3 months before the last election where I felt like Ben Bernanke was in the tank for the president. And it's just based on some of the things he said and some of his actions. So I don't know the answer to that, Vern. I don't have, I guess my ideology of wanting to believe desperately that it isn't the case is overriding me being able to say, oh, yeah, definitely on that. I don't know if that's your opinion is what, Vern? Your opinion is that it is.
The Fed pulled a lot of strings with the administration.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the administration, I know this much, this goes for all administrations, cannot ignore the Fed. I mean, they can't just totally. Now, I believe if anybody did that more so than most presidents, it was probably George Bush, and Bill Clinton did a pretty good job of it. Were certainly a couple presidents that did a pretty good job, at least in my recent memory. I guess George Bush, the senior as well, that didn't care much about what the Fed did and tried to stay out of it. But, yeah, I think you make a valid point, and it certainly is a possibility. All I can say is I think that if Ben Bernanke's ideology aligned very closely with the president, I think the president would be making a case to try to keep him in office, as he always did to the Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner. Just begged him literally not to resign the first time he said he was going to resign. That was right after the first term of the president, and he, stayed. So I think that it is, after the 2010 elections, and he stayed. And, I think he would take him back in a heartbeat because their ideology aligns so well. Anyway, thanks for that. Let me go to Alan from Montana. Hey, Alan.
Hi there. Hello?
How are you? Yes, sir.
Hi. How's your day going?
Yeah, it's going okay, Alan.
Let me get to my concerns. My mother recently died about 2 months ago, and my sister gave me a copy of the alleged will that was made in January of this year. I don't know if there was any will preceding that. There probably should have been. My mom was up on her finances, did all of her own income taxes, kept records for her stock investments and all that. So it seems strange that she would have waited until she was at death's door at 87 years of age to type of will. The person who, okay, my mom's heart attacked her last Thursday. She got a pacemaker put in. Then my sister, who lives in Missoula, came over, took my mother and a bunch of paperwork over to Missoula to live, for my mom to live with my sister. And they came back in January and had this will drawn up by a local attorney. Now, my sister is named as the personal representative, and she does the expenses of administering, make sure the estate is administered according to this will.
Yes. Yes.
And she has not run any type of legal notice in the paper. Me and my sister, we're the only two heirs that are in the will.
Mm-hmm.
She's not run a legal notice. She said that she didn't think she had to. She's trying to get me kicked out of this house, trying to get me out of the house. I rented the basement
Alan,
of my mom's
let me interrupt you.
Since 1989.
Are you both on the will equally?
Pardon?
To your mother's estate? Are you both equal heirs?
Essentially, It says what I inherit is all tools located at this residence, all VCRs, all televisions, and a vehicle. And then it says all other personal property at this residence to my sister. And then...
well, the only thing... Let me just interrupt you there, Alan, before we run out of time. The only thing you can do, I mean, the will has to have legal notice. You have to go through probate, and you need to, since you've gotten a copy of that will, and you know that you went to a local attorney. The only thing you can do is question the local attorney, and the only way that you can contest anything that's in that will, and this goes for anybody listening, is when you go to contest. It doesn't matter, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but it's totally irrelevant as to what you think happened. It's totally irrelevant. It means nothing. It only means something to you, I understand. But as someone who owned a trust company and settled lots of wills and trusts, I can tell you that it really doesn't matter. Now, the only thing you can do is that you've got to contact the local attorney, and you would have to file for a legal contesting of the will, at which the local attorney would have to testify that your mother, it did not appear in his opinion, that your mother was going through any outside influence that would influence her decisions on the will, or that your mother he would have to testify that your mother, according to how and when she appeared to him in front of him, that she was of sound mind. It doesn't mean that she necessarily was, but it means at least he would have to say that by his account. And, lawyers ask certain questions to try to get to that whenever they're dealing with someone elderly, and that she was of sound mind. So if he testifies to that and, can say that, he does not believe she suffered, she was going through any undue influence, your sister, in the way she drafted this will, then it is what it is, and you really have very little to stand on. And I hate to say that, but it just is the fact. So it would be different if your mother never mentioned you at all in the will. In other words, you got nothing. Then you would have a pretty solid case for some sort of contestment, because you could make a case that, look, I'm her son, that she would not have totally left me out of the will. But because there is some mention of you in the will, that would tell the judge that, well, she obviously thought of you. You came to her mind, or, there wouldn't have been this in there. So that makes your case very weak. I have dealt with people that have said to me, I don't want this particular child to get anything, not a nickel. They have, they've taken a lot of money from me. They've borrowed a lot of money. They're irresponsible. They're not walking with the Lord, whatever the case is. And I always tell them, you have to put them in the will for something. Put them in the will for $100. Because if they ever contest and they're never mentioned, they have a good chance of winning. So you have to at least mention them. So I've been on that side of it and have told people that. So I don't mean to cut you off. I'm not a lawyer, but I would say this. You need to go to the lawyer that drafted it up and express to them, and you need to go to probate court. You need to go file, you're probably going to have to get a lawyer and file to the probate court that you plan on contesting this will so that nothing gets settled and everything's frozen. So, and you need to do that relatively soon before things start to get settled. So I would, the legal notice has to be placed, and the lawyer knows that, and your sister has to do that because there could be outstanding judgments or whatever the situation is that people have to be notified. There has to be a legal notification. So, I don't mean to cut you off there, Alan, but I think that is probably some pretty helpful information based on where you were going. So, you've got to do that part of it before you have any chance of really having a whole lot of help there. You're listening to American Family Radio Network, Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia, 866-300-9298. We'll be back after this.